Hello, race fans. This is the NASCAR show brought to you by The Grueling Truth, where legends speak. I'm your host, Alex Gray, here with my co-host, Steve Risley. He is the Dick Trickle of our society. What?
All right, Alex, let's get this. First off, I don't know that you're old enough to be a legend, and I don't know that I'm smart enough to be a legend. But we both have an incredible passion for NASCAR and the sport, and I know in speaking with you, and we've done pre-production meetings, I can't get enough of it. The greatest thing to me, last Sunday, it's at about 8 o'clock Los Angeles time, was Super Bowl was over, which meant football was over, which means we are starting NASCAR. And
time to race.
Time to race, baby. Rubbing is racing, boogity, 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 all the stupid things, drop the green flag, let's get after it. We've had a lot of crap go on in the off season here, and a lot of it in the last 48 hours. What's your take on where we're going here with NASCAR?
All right, so I'll take a rundown of basically what has been.
Changes.
Yeah, the rules changes. There's a brand new rules package that got announced back in October, I believe. So basically what it is that the package is slowing the cars down on tracks larger than 1.2 miles, and it's going to create 550 horsepower. That's 200 less from what we had in 2018. And this will be used at every track. The lone exception is the Daytona 500. This will be the last race that will have restrictor plates at 400 horsepower. So that's a little interesting. They're taking off the restrictor plates.
Are they taking away restrictor plates? Because to me, as a fan, restrictor plate racing is the most fun of the racing to watch. That in Martinsville, but you always know your driver's probably going to get banged up in Martinsville and get knocked out. But restrictor plate racing, to me, is the brand of NASCAR. Am I right or wrong there?
You make an interesting point. Some things they've done is there's going to be ducts that push air that says through the front wheel. I'm looking at this from an ESPN article. Through the front wheel wells for 16 races, bigger rear spoiler from 2.375 to 8 inches high, and a front splitter that will jut out 2 inches instead of 1/4 inch from the front of the car, which will increase downforce and drag, and hopefully just creating a lot more passing. Now, I know they did the restrictor plates with this package at Charlotte. So, I mean,
okay. All right, so let me ask you a question. They go from 700 horsepower, which is what the motors produce now, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're going down to 550. Does that make a difference? I mean, they're still going to go 200 miles an hour because whatever they lose in raw horsepower, they're going to make up in aero, right? And they're going to figure it out.
Yeah, because
so really, is it going to change anything really in terms of speed on the track, or is it going to change the racing? Maybe slower speeds help the racing because you don't have runaway cars.
I think it is going to help racing because there was a test session. They took about 15 cars or so to Las Vegas last week, and they ran some single car sessions, and then they took all the cars out there and they basically ran around for I think 20 laps. And the last session, apparently there was a lot of crazy 3-4 wide kind of racing, and I think, for example, Kyle Busch was able to drop back and get by everybody again. So there was a lot of passing, a lot of jostling for position. Somebody made the quote that apparently the times during that test was a little slower than the Xfinity Series cars, but I'm not too concerned for that because I think it's going to change when you have 40 cars out there. You know, that's 20 in a very quick session. Think about 40 cars in a 200-lap race. So I think that'll
Yeah, and what I was reading with this whole process was that it seems to me what NASCAR would like to do, although most of their funding comes from the manufacturers. Let's be honest about it. Toyota, Ford, and Chevy do a bulk of the funding for these things. So they want some separation. The manufacturers do, and we saw that with the Camaro last year, which struggled all year until Hendrick finally figured it out and gave Elliott a chance to win some races. And I think he won 3 of the 4 bow tie wins that the Chevrolet had in all of last year. I think Austin Dillon won the Daytona, and then Elliott was the only other Chevy car that won. Am I right there?
Yep, Chevy had 4 wins in the Cup Series last year.
And 3 of them were Elliott's, yeah. And so,
Yep.
and it's because I think he's a great driver, and we'll get into that later on the show. But does NASCAR really, truly want to put the racing back in the hands of the drivers? Or is that just a facade? Because I'm telling you what, I think the driver separation talent is greater than the equipment separation is. What do you think about that?
I see where you're coming from. I remember when Kyle Busch.
Yeah, I'm afraid of Kyle Busch running away with things, and Kevin Harvick. They're great drivers. Chase Elliott's a great driver. They're
right.
If you make the equipment less of the factor, and you put it more in the driver's hands, are you going to see more balanced racing? Or are you going to see more separation? I'll shut up. I'm sorry.
I think there's going to be more balanced racing. There was something interesting that Kyle Busch said after that session at Las Vegas. The quote here that he said, if I can find it real quick, basically he says, "We've taken the driver skill away from the drivers in this package." He said this to Jeff Gluck. "Anybody can go out and run around there and we'll go wide open. You, the media, can probably do it. It's going to be a lot more of a mental game, a lot more of a chess match, thinking how you make moves and how daring you'll be."
That's driver separation. That's driver separation to me. What's he talking about? I don't get that at all. And I'll preface this by asking you: do you think Joey Logano, because he was in a Ford, won the Cup last year, or was he that much of a better driver than anybody else? I don't think Joey Logano was the best driver in NASCAR last year, but he had some of the best equipment because I think that the NASCAR engineers favored the Ford because they wanted Ford to get victories. Stewart-Haas had been moved over to Ford. Penske moved over to Ford, so 2 of their premier teams had moved over. They'd given Toyota the run for a few years. Chevy had a down year. Ford's introducing the Mustang this year, which is probably going to, if it's fair balance, you would think the Camaro is going to do well this year because they're going to give them some aero benefits. That's just how I see it as a fan. Am I off base or am I on target?
I think you're pretty much on with what you're saying. Yeah, Ford was absolutely dominant. Ford was just Stewart-Haas was the team to beat last year. They were. You saw how dominant they were the fall Talladega race. They ran the top 4 up until the very end. So
it makes you wish that it kept Danica Patrick one more year just so she would have gotten a legitimate NASCAR win. Because she probably would have last year. I mean, bless her heart, she probably would have gotten a legitimate NASCAR win.
She might have. Yeah.
The fact of being in a Ford, yeah. I mean, I think that there was, and I don't want to take anyway from the talent because, until you, we understand. We don't understand the fact of going 200 miles an hour with 39 other idiots 1 inch away from you with, turbulence, aero, side draft, push, bad rubber, green spots on the track. We don't understand that concept at all. We have no idea. But so talent does play a part of it. But I think definitely it seemed to me that NASCAR favored Ford last year significantly and gave them some advantages that Toyota and Chevy didn't have.
Yeah, I think Ford will still be strong, but not as strong as they were last year. I think Chevy's going to do a lot better this year because I thought to myself last year, Chevy's going to kill it, man. They got the Camaro. They're going to absolutely tear up the track, and I was way off. So, I think that'll change. We're starting to see the supercar or the muscle car come into the sport. The Supra's back. It's in the Xfinity Series, and it's probably going to be in the Cup Series before we know it. So, we got the Camaro versus the Mustang versus the Supra, and that seems to be the future of the sport.
And we'll definitely get to that. Elliott, and Chevrolet, Hendrick, they struggled. Did they finally figure it out, or did NASCAR finally start giving them a little bit of aero advantage, maybe in some of their, reconfigurations to say we got to make Chevrolet more competitive because we don't want to lose GM, we don't want them out of the sport, and they're not going away. I mean, GM's never going to go away from NASCAR. No, that's not going to happen. But they're also going to get disenchanted and maybe throw less money into it. if they don't think they have a fair opportunity to win. And you only had only two bow tie drivers win last year. And one was Austin Dillon, and the other three were Chase Elliott, who is a bona fide great driver in the sport.
Yeah, with Austin's win, nothing against him. It was a great win
Daytona,
for him.
Daytona, yeah. It's a crapshoot.
Right. With Chase,
yeah.
he clicked. And I think that's what's beginning Chevrolet's sort of comeback. I thought, of course, Kyle Larson came very close in Chicagoland, that amazing finish between him and Kyle Busch. And it's amazing that he didn't win at all. But I think he will do better as well this year. Look out for Chase. I think Alex Bowman is going to be on the rise. I think William Byron, young man, but he's got Chad Knaus on his side now. I think he's going to slowly start to improve. I give him a couple more years. I think he may be running up for the playoffs and start to win races. So
all right, so now you just created about 150 questions here. Let's just start with the top. Johnson and Knaus.
Yeah.
Good move, bad move?
It's hard to say. I feel like Johnson is and now at the tail end of his career, and it kind of really hurt me a bit to see him struggle last year. Like, man, Jimmy Johnson has been dominant.
I agree.
Season, and maybe sometimes even he and Knaus have been together for as long as he's racing the Cup Series, but
18 years.
Yeah, 18 years, and sometimes you have to change things up and see, what works better. So I think that's what they're trying to do here.
So what happens with these two? I mean, it's a car. It's a mechanical piece of equipment. I don't think, and Johnson's not. I don't. He's what, mid to early 40s or late 40s, somewhere in there. Do his skill sets just fall off that much, or what prevents him from being able to win with the regularity that he was winning, 3 years ago? I mean, is it just lack of desire? Is it, I can't say it's equipment because it's Hendrick. I mean, dadgummit, they put the best equipment on the track every race.
He's
one of the
won
best. I mean,
championships in 83
7
races.
in a row. Yeah. I mean,
so
what happens there with Jimmy Johnson? I mean, does he just kind of say, I don't want to make the effort anymore? I made enough money. What's going on? Because I'm like you. I kind of rooted for the Patriots this year, just because I think, you know what, just keep it going now. You guys, Belichick and Brady have done it so long, so good. Now you're going to root for him. You wanted to hate him 5 years ago, and you wanted to hate Jimmy Johnson 5 years ago, but now it's like, just keep it going and keep kicking everybody's tail.
Anymore, I have respect for that kind of stuff because they made it work. I have tremendous respect for Jimmy Johnson. I think he's definitely probably the greatest of our time. Next up there with Gordon, Stewart, and Harvick and those guys. Especially Johnson and Harvick. They're similar age. They came into the Cup Series almost at the same time. Of course, Harvick came in 2001 after Earnhardt died, and Johnson came in in 2002.
He won the next race. Didn't he win the race? Didn't he win Atlanta right after Earnhardt died?
Harvick beat Gordon in Atlanta.
Car. Yeah, he took the 29 car and under the Good Wrench logo and won in Atlanta on the very next race. I mean, I was in tears when it happened because I know exactly where I was when we watched the Daytona 500, and then we left. We saw the wreck, and the Pacers were playing the Lakers in Indianapolis, and we had season tickets in Indianapolis. We went to the game, and at halftime they announced that he had died. We knew it wasn't good because they were being very quiet. And then my wife and I got up and left the game. I said, I'm not staying here. I'm going home. And that was a very bad day. And I don't even know if you were alive then. I don't even know if you were even around then when that happened.
Oh, geez. I was probably like 3 or 4.
Yeah, but I remember watching it on the big screen at Market Square Arena in Indianapolis. That we were sad to say that Dale Earnhardt, and they had Mike Helton come on and just we've lost Dale. I remember it, and I'm like, say we're going home, and we had tickets with 3 other couples, and I said, T and I, we're leaving. I can't sit here and watch this game anymore. And I can't even tell you if the Pacers or Lakers won. That's how big it was for the sport. But So so you got the older guys coming in, but Johnson and Canals, I don't know if that's a good move or not. I don't know. I think I would have maybe left them together, but they lost Lowe's. They lost their primary sponsor, and that probably makes it more viable of a move for them to just break it up and go a different direction.
Yeah, it's a shame too, because Lowe's also has their new partnership with the NFL, and apparently yesterday on Twitter they were praising Tom Brady, which they should. Obviously, he's amazing, but it's like, dude, you guys were with Jimmy. He's won 7.
Yeah.
But obviously, nothing against Lowe's.
Last question about that. Let me one more question. Will Jimmy ever win 8, or he'll never get to 8? You think he will or not?
I think this year we'll see if he can. I think this year's kind of make or break for him. His contract ends after 2020, so maybe. I'd be thrilled if he can get to 8. That would be awesome. That would be such an amazing accomplishment. Do you really?
Because I kind of like the fact that it's Earnhardt and Petty at 7.
Right.
That's a barrier that you don't want broken. I don't know. I just feel that way. You got 2 guys at 7, the 2 greatest icons in NASCAR. Do you want that barrier broken or not? I mean, by Jimmy Johnson, who is a corporate man. I mean, Petty and Earnhardt were characters in their own right, and now all of a sudden you brought Jimmy Johnson into it, who's just a character. I mean, a corporate man. And basically, he's told the line his entire 18-year career. Do you want him being the face of the all-time wins or all-time championships in NASCAR? I kind of like leaving it where it's at.
The interesting thing is, too, all 3 of those guys, Petty, Earnhardt, and Johnson, they all race in completely different eras.
Right.
At NASCAR. And that's why it's kind of hard to determine which one is really the best of them all. Well,
you can't do that. Yeah, you can't do that because Petty ran 3 races a week. Because that was back with NASCAR. They would put them on half of them drove their cars to the track. They just put the headlights in and took the headlights out when they got to the track and put a cover on it, and they drove their cars. They didn't even have trailers. But Richard Petty, when he won 200 wins, half of his wins, like I said, he was getting 3 races a week. Where now you have 1 race, 36, 37 times. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't have the opportunity. Nobody will touch Petty's career. Because nobody will ever get the opportunity to race that many times.
Nobody's going to.
Nobody will have dominant equipment to be able to win 200 races. So it's kind of an unrealistic number. But like I said, don't be fooled by the fact that like I said, he would win at Bowman Gray on Monday. He would go to Winston-Salem on Tuesday. He'd race at Martinsville on Thursday, and they'd race at Darlington on Sunday. And in the span of a week, he would get 3 wins, with far superior equipment because he was one of the first factory-sponsored teams out there. So it's a little asterisk on his record. And I don't want to take anything away from Richard Petty because he's the ambassador of the sport. And he is the king. He's the king. But the way Earnhardt won, the way, David Pearson won, the way Jeff Gordon won, the way it's a little more competitive, a little tougher to do. You had fewer opportunities, and you had to capitalize more often.
Yeah, NASCAR is more competitive than it ever really has been.
It's more balanced. Yeah. Yeah. So Jimmy Johnson, we think I don't think he gets 8. I think he's done. I think he doesn't win his 8th championship. I think that right now Hendrick will throw their money into Byron, into Bowman, and into Elliott, and say, you know what, Jimmy Johnson is our cash cow. He's our cash cow. He's the money maker until they lost Lowe's. But then how long do you carry him? I would guess, like Gordon, who I know does, Jimmy probably has a lifetime contract with Hendrick. That would be my guess.
Yeah.
That, because Gordon's part owner of Hendrick Motorsports. I mean, he owns part of the company.
Yeah.
So, he's never going to leave the sport and go away. But when did I think he stopped being competitive this year. The movie made at the Roval in Charlotte, which was a fun race.
It was
to take Truex out. but to just totally screw it up on the last turn of the last corner, it says, this is ceremonial at some point in time.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't really need to do that, because if he had finished second, he would have advanced
qualified.
Into the
He'd advanced. He would have advanced. Right.
Yeah. So I mean, there is that argument. Yeah, he was going for the win, but
Okay, so what the most important change? The biggest change back to the rules changes. If you get caught cheating, you lose the win. How significant is that, Alex? I mean, I think it's that. I love it.
Yes. So basically, what's going to happen is generally they take like the first two finishing cars, they take them to an R&D center, and you won't know for 3 days if the car was not anymore. Those cars will go into R&D at the track right after the race. And so if the car is deemed illegal, NASCAR will disqualify you. They will take away your win. They will take away your points and the trophy, everything, and you will be sent to 40th place. And that will pretty much all go to the second place driver if he or she fails to third place. Jeff Gluck retweeted the Twitter poll after that was announced. It was a poll from September 2017. 91% were in favor of disqualifying drivers. I think this is a fantastic move. This is a great move. And, of course, I know some people will probably start hating it once it happens to their favorite driver. But, hey, the rules are the rules. I think this is best off.
Who's the first one that gets caught?
What's that?
Who's the first one that gets caught? It's a guess. I mean, it's a guess. But if you look at the teams, you look at Gibbs, you look at Hendrick, you look at Penske, you look at SHR. Who's the first one that gets nailed on this one? I think
sorry to be mean, but he kind of got slammed with a couple of these big penalties last year. I'm going to say Kevin Harvick. Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, I think it's Stuart Haas that gets caught first. I think they'll push the envelope, but that's what makes him a great champion. Is he'll push the envelope. The old adage is never cheating until you get caught. But now if you get caught, you've cheated and you're going to get screwed. Now
it's going to hurt.
I'm going to hate it because I know it's going to happen to my driver, who's Chase Elliott.
Right.
It's going to happen to him. He's going to get busted somewhere down the road, and it's going to kill me the weekend that it happens. But I think it's great for the sport, and I think it's the best move NASCAR has made in a long time in terms of putting a stamp on validating that we want competition. We want it to be fair. We don't want you to cheat. We want you to race. And, it's great. I like the rule change. What other rule changes are significant? That just pick out the two or three that you think are really going to affect the difference in racing.
All right. So going back to when we talked about the rules package, this is probably going to be temporary because NASCAR also announced the ETA for the Gen 7 race car. Right now, we're in the Gen 6 car.
Right.
I remember Steve O'Donnell quoted a while back about there being no splitter. The Gen 7 might have composite bodies as well, but we know that this type of car, we don't know much else, but it's going to come out in 2021. So I think it'll be interesting to see what they'll do with that car, especially if with this package, to see if that could play a factor into it. I think over this year and next year, we may get a good idea. So I'm really looking forward to that. I don't know what it's going to bring us, but I'm just looking. What's that?
No, I finished. I'm going to ask you a question when you finish. I'm sorry. I tend to get ahead of myself a lot of times, as you'll find out as we do this all season long. Finish what? I got a question for you.
All right. That makes two of us, by the way.
I know. Yeah, so that's good. Talk over each other all we want. Here's my question. I'll just go ahead and ask it. Should NASCAR go back to the old era of just having one freaking car and you got to race it on all tracks? I mean, we have road course cars, we have super speedway cars, we have mile-and-a-half cars, we have short track cars. I mean, these guys, if you look in the shops now, there are 39 cars sitting in the Hendrick Motorsports garage for Chase Elliott. Should we just go back to say, get your ass in the seat, get a seat you're comfortable in. This is the car. It's the same rules package on every track. Drive it. I mean, that's kind of what Richard Petty did. It's kind of what David Pearson did. It's kind of what Earnhardt did in the early part of his career. I mean, Buddy Baker, you can go back, Cuckoo Marlin, all the guys, Scott, you can keep going back and say they had one car on one single trailer that wasn't in a big semi. It was on an open trailer, and they hauled it to that track and they raced it. And some of them drove the cars to the track, as we said. Would NASCAR be better off just going back to have one car and, you know what, race it? Be a racer. Don't be an engineer.
It might be hard to try and go back to that, but I firmly believe that the manufacturers, like, you have certain specs, right? I think the manufacturers should have more say in what the cars look like. All the cars shouldn't look the same. I think, like,
they do look the same.
Yeah, if it's a Camaro, make it look like a Camaro, and or a Mustang or a Supra or whatever. If Dodge comes back or somebody else comes in, I think the cars should have, you got this much horsepower, you have to have this and all the safety stuff. But besides that, let the manufacturers and teams do what they want. Like, I just personally believe that I think the cars should look different from each other and not all the same. That was always especially when they had the Car of Tomorrow back in 2008.
Yeah, which I think that Kyle Busch won the first race in the COT.
He did.
Was it Martinsville?
Bristol.
I'm sorry, Bristol. Yeah, he won the first race with the COT, which looked like something out of Star Wars.
Looked like a box on wheels.
A box with a wing on the back. It was goofy looking, but and he bitched about it more than anybody, and he wins the first COT race of all time. But I just at some point you just want these guys all whine and cry about advantage. I'm like, you know what? Just you get 5 cars, and it's kind of like what F1 does. F1 says you get 4 engines for the whole season. Otherwise, you start paying penalties and grid spots when your engines blow up. So you take care of your engines. It's like give them 5 cars and say, that's it. That's all you get. You wreck the cars. You know what? You got to rebuild it. You got to do something. But you don't get an unlimited number of cars with different configurations, with different calipers, with different body angles. The walking they do on the cars, I worked for Pfizer. We had the Viagra race car for 5 years with Mark Martin. I learned a lot about being a part of that liaison with that team. And see how dramatically they change the cars, how they would crease the side panels, and now you get the deal where crew guys come in and kick the panel in to change the aerodynamics on the panel when they're changing a tire, all that stuff that goes on. It's just like, you know what? It's like David or Robert Duvall said in Days of Thunder, ain't nothing stock about a stock car. It's kind of what it's gone down to. You're right. It's all decals. Pretty much all the bodies are pretty much they have one template they work off of, and to me it just takes it out of the driver's hands, puts it more in the engineer's hands, and I don't like that about the sport.
Yeah, I think you make some interesting points there with having cars to work with. So I think,
and we're going to cover this all season. This is not answers. We're not going to answer all these questions right now. So, who are the young guns? Who are the guys to watch this year? I've seen the early predictors. Harvick, is up on top. Truex has made a move to a new team. Newman's made a move to a new team. McMurray's out. A lot of guys have changed teams. Who are we looking for in 2019 to be relevant?
Okay, so first off, for rookies, Daniel Hemrick is moving to Richard Childress Racing, replacing Ryan Newman. The car's been renumbered from 31 to 8. So the 3 and the 8 are on the same team. They wrangled
that away from Teresa Earnhardt, didn't they? They had to wrangle that number away from her.
I don't think that was – Junior said that wasn't really his number. I mean, he pretty much had no problem with Hemrick having the 8. He's like, he didn't even have to ask me. So, and plus, if you haven't heard – his Xfinity Series team got the 8. So he's got that.
Earnhardt does?
Junior's Xfinity team. Yep. They got the
car
one
back. Okay.
Yep. So, yeah, you got that. Ryan Preece replacing A.J. Allmendinger in the 47. Matt Tiff joining Front Row Motorsports. Some guys to look out for this year in terms of young guns. When I want to talk about who, especially guys who I think will get their first career Cup wins, Daniel Suarez moving over from Joe Gibbs to Stuart Haas. I think he's going to do better this year. I think he's going to improve. He's got a couple. I feel like he was kind of thrown into a Cup car a little bit with Edwards suddenly retiring. I felt like he could have used another year in Xfinity, but I think Suarez will be okay. I can see him winning a race.
And without getting into, and we don't. But was that a part of NASCAR's diversity program that he got put there, or was he talented enough to be there? And if you don't want to address it, don't address it. I'm just asking the question. I mean, was he talented enough to be in a Cup car at that point in his career, or was that part of a diversity program? And if you don't want to answer, don't answer. Just I don't want to talk about it. No problem.
He was part of the Drive for Diversity program. He did win the 2016 Xfinity Championship.
Okay. Well, then it makes him qualified, yeah.
Yeah. I think Suarez is a talented driver, and I just think he struggled a bit, but now that he's gotten a couple of years in the Cup Series, I think he's going to do just fine at Stuart Haas. So, yeah, I can see him winning. I can see Alex Bowman and William Byron getting a win this year. Byron teaming up with Knaus, and obviously Bowman has had quite a few years of experience in the Cup Series. So I think Bowman can get one win, same with Byron. Here's a weird one, but I think with Levine Family Racing now having that Joe Gibbs equipment to work with, Matt DiBenedetto has pushed BK Racing and Go Fast Racing equipment before. I can see Matt DiBenedetto getting a win this year in the 90s.
He won at Pocono, didn't he, a couple of years ago? Did he not? Did he win at Pocono?
That was Chris Buescher.
That was Chris Buescher. Okay, yeah. All right, I get those two confused. All right, that was Buescher that won.
He's in the 37.
Right. Yeah. That was a rain-shortened race, so that Buescher won, wasn't it?
Yeah, Buescher won that race, and then it pretty much got himself into the playoffs because of it. Right,
yeah. Okay, other young guns? I mean, is this the year of Chase Elliott? Is this his year?
I think Chase Elliott will make the championship four this year. I think he's clicked. I think he's winning races now. I think I can see him winning 4 to 5 races. I'm going to go out and throw that out. I think Chase Elliott's going to have a very good season. I think he's going to be the dominant guy at Hendrick Motorsports, and I think he makes the championship four.
All right, Kyle Larson, is he a product of what's the team he's on? Ganassi Racing. Is he just a product of being not on really what I would call the upper echelon? They qualify well, but they never run. They don't seem to run well. They don't seem to be able to finish races. They qualify well. Am I right or wrong? Or is he a driver that needs to find a new team?
I think we'll find that out this season. I want to see, because 2017 to me felt like that big year he had. He won like 3 races. I saw him win at Michigan. I think Larson's very talented. I think he'll do better this year. But I think this is kind of a make or break with his future revolving around Ganassi, and whether he may leave that team or go somewhere else. I think we'll find out this year. He was eliminated from the round of 12 last year. I think Larson can get into the round of 8 and get a couple wins while at it.
Okay. All right. Anybody else we need to keep an eye
on? Keep an eye out for Eric Jones. I think he and Ryan Blaney. I think Ryan Blaney will win more races this year. I think he's probably a guy that can break out next.
I think Blaney ends up at Hendrick at some point in time.
Okay. So
I think him and Elliott are buddies. I think at some point in time, he and Chase are real good friends. We've all seen that. They play off each other well. They race well together. I think at some point in time they're going to give up on either Byron or one of their young drivers, and they're going to say, let's bring Blaney over And there's your new Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson duo is Blaney. Because I think Blaney is probably the best underachieving driver in racing right now because I don't think he has equipment that he needs to have.
It seems like whenever Penske tries to go to 3 cars, they just that third car just doesn't do as hot as the other two. But that's interesting you say that. Maybe he replaces Jimmy Johnson because I think Johnson's contract is after 2020. So maybe him or Noah Gragson could go to the 48. Which that's more of a that's interesting. I never thought about that.
That's a great concept. Yeah, I mean we just brought that up. That's a great concept. Is to 2020, you see Blaney come to Hendrick and take the 48 car, and then you've got that kind of shake and bake thing going with Will Ferrell and John C. Riley and Talladega Nights of take all bake, and I see Blaney and Elliott just doing that, and Hendrick is the team in NASCAR. I mean they're the player.
Yeah, I mean you got those four. You got those four. You're set the next 15 years. At least,
and I could really see that possibly coming down the road. That's interesting to watch. That's something we can watch for throughout the season.
Now, what are your thoughts on Darrell Wallace Jr., who's driving for Richard Petty?
He's on a bad team. I think he's a good driver on a bad team. I think he needs to get out of there. I think Richard Petty is ceremonial. I don't think that he has the money, the funding to put a legitimate team on the track. And I think that he's probably tarnishing Darrell Wallace Jr. as a driver.
I think you're right.
I would love to see him, I would have loved to see when they brought on the guys, the young guns at Hendrick, I would have loved to have seen Hendrick take Darrell Wallace Jr. as a driver because, I think diversity is important in the sport. I think it is because I think it saves the sport and brings people in. It brings the new people in. And it's why I would have never dumped Danica Patrick, just because I think that the value of her to the sport in general was huge. But I think Darrell Wallace is very important to NASCAR. But I think he's in just such crappy equipment, he has no chance. And I would love to see him get with Haas or Hendrick or JGR or somebody or Penske, somebody where he has equipment that he can go run races and win. I don't think he's there with Richard Petty Motorsports. I think Richard needs to, just kind of get out of it. And, and you don't want to lose Richard Petty in the sport of NASCAR because he is the king. But I don't think his effectiveness in the sport anymore is utilitarian. It's ceremonial. He's there, because he's got the blue and the STP colors, the Petty blue. His car is on the track, but I don't think that Darrell Wallace has a chance. Rats has a chance in hell of winning in that car.
Yeah, and I've seen him push that car to the best he can. He has pushed.
He wrecks it because he pushes it. I mean, he wrecks more times. I think he's just overdriving the car because he has to do that. I'd love to see him get in a Hendrick car or a Stewart Haas car and say, okay, now use your talent and drive. Here you go.
Right. And I think Bubba's a talented driver in 2017 before his team had routed.
Very good driver. Yeah, he's a great driver.
He was very consistent. So, I mean, I love Bubba. I think he's a great character, great guy. He's very funny.
He's important for the sport. He's important for the sport for many ways, not just because of the color of his skin. That's a factor, but I think he's a talented driver. He's a young guy coming up. I think he expands the scope of NASCAR viewership, and I just think he's in crappy equipment, and I think he's just going to struggle until he gets out of that equipment.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one.
It's my opinion. I'll stand behind that one.
Yeah.
And I hope he does. I hope this year is his last year at Petty, and I hope that Hendrick or, JGR or somebody else picks him up and says, this is a talented driver. Let's give him a car to drive. And it doesn't matter what his skin color is. Let's just give him a car that he's talented enough. Give him a piece of equipment as good a piece of equipment as he is as a driver. And that's what I hope to see.
Yeah, I I have a bit of a theory. Like, I think GMS Racing will eventually be a Cup team, and I could see GMS luring him in. I mean, they supply a lot to other truck teams, and they get supplied by Junior Motorsports and Hendrick. So, I mean, with that kind of relationship, I think that could really work out. But
yeah, and that's something in future shows I want to explore with you is the suppliership of teams. Like, I know people buy Hendrick engines, they buy Roush Yates engines, they buy, and we'll not talk about that because we're going to go too long tonight on an inaugural show. But I want to be able to explore that. What does that really mean if somebody buys a Hendrick engine? I mean, how much tampering can they do with that engine? I think I know that they're pretty well not allowed to touch it, and once they blow it up, they have to send it back in a crate back to Hendrick, and Hendrick repairs it or whatever. But
yeah,
they sell you the engine, but they don't give you the technology. So that's a future down the road thing. Where was I going to go from here?
Do you want to talk about the entry list for the Clash and the Daytona 500?
Yeah, I'll talk about it, and I've got more questions to ask. So go ahead and talk about that right now because I had another really good question, but I got off track. So go ahead.
All right, no biggie. So I'll go ahead and go through the Clash entry list.
What's qualifying to get in? What's qualifying to get into Clash? You have to want to pole or want to race, right?
Yeah, it's a pole award winner from the previous season, former Daytona 500 winners, former Daytona 500 pole winners, and anyone who made the playoffs last year. So those drivers are Ryan Blaney, Alex Bowman, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott, Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick, Eric Jones, Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, Daniel Suarez, Martin Truex Jr., Jamie McMurray. He will drive this race in the Daytona 500 and call it a career. He will drive
for Ganassi. He'll drive for Ganassi.
It's a Ganassi prepped car under a team called Spire Motorsports. So they'll be the number 40. So they're bringing that 40 back. That's kind of cool.
The
right?
Coors Light, the Coors car, yeah, Sterling Marlin's car.
Yeah, it's not sponsored by Coors Light, although that would be.
No,
really
but
cool.
that was Sterling Marlin's number.
Yeah,
wasn't Sterling Marlin 40? Yeah.
He subbed in for him and won that race in Charlotte. Yeah. Austin Dillon, Jimmy Johnson, Eric Amarola, Clint Boyer, Brad Keselowski. That's 20 drivers.
How does Jimmy Johnson qualify? He's a former Daytona 500 winner.
Yeah, he won it twice, 06 and 13.
Okay. All right. So it's 75. It's a one stop race. Can they go 75 laps on one tank of fuel, or do they have to stop?
Let me check. They'll probably do maybe like.
Yeah, I think you got to stop. I think you go about 30 to 40 laps at Daytona. With tires are not going to be the issue. It's going to be fuel.
Yeah.
They probably will throw a mandatory caution just to bunch them all back up again.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah. Let's see, the Clash of Daytona. It will be this Sunday, February 10th, 3 o'clock Eastern on Fox Sports 1. Let's see. There are how many laps is this race? 75 laps.
75 laps. Yeah.
They also.
I think 150 miles. I think it's 150 miles, isn't that? Yeah.
It says here about 187.5 miles.
187.5. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that'd be right.
So yeah, of course, this race used to be the Busch Clash, the Bud Shootout,
right,
and the Unlimited. So it's nice they have that Clash name back. So it's just a fun little race to kick off the season. So I'm looking forward to it. And of course, the day before you got the ARCA race as well.
The ARCA races really are what are fun because then you see hungry drivers that are trying to make a name for themselves. You see guys taking a lot more risks than they do in NASCAR equipment because even though the Clash, whatever it is this year, it's like wreck the car because we don't care. We're not using this car for anything but the Clash. Another one of those deals where we got 30 cars in the Chase Elliott garage, so wreck this one. We don't care. Go ahead. That's what it's here for. And that hauler will go back to Charlotte with that car after it's beat up and wrecked, and they'll bring down his 4 Chase or Daytona cars, which he could easily go through. Okay, my question was this. I remember my question. I wanted to ask you about Martin Truex Jr.
Mm-hmm.
leaves Denver Mattress, leaves his team. They fold. He's going to, JGR, driving the 19 car, correct?
Yep.
Taking over for Suarez. What's your expectations of Martin Truex Jr.? Do we find out if he's a good driver or he had great equipment? What do you think?
I think Truex will still continue to do well. I don't think he'll still win some races, but he won't be as dominant as he was at Furniture Row. I mean, you look at that and how in the world were they able to be so dominant? I also believe it's him and Cole Pearn. Those two work really well together, and I think Truex will be fine. I think he'll win races. He'll still be a contender for the championship. So that's how I feel about Truex.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because, at JGR, he's dealing with Hamlin. He's dealing with Kyle Busch.
And Eric Jones.
Eric Jones. So, and he's going to be the second in line at best. I mean, he's not going to get above Kyle Busch in terms of getting the pampering. He may jump ahead of Hamlin only because Hamlin has had a couple of down seasons, but they've got FedEx, which you don't want to screw with losing a sponsor like FedEx.
Yeah,
so
FedEx
is huge. That may be one of the only – is that the only sole sponsor left in NASCAR where they sponsor every race?
Yeah, they sponsor Hamlin the entire season, and so is Johnson.
And Lowe's was the only other one, right? Lowe's was the only other one.
Johnson's new sponsor actually is now sponsoring him full-time as well, Ally Financial.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That won't last for 18 years, I guarantee you that, because they won't be able to afford it. But Lowe's could afford it. So I don't, so all of a sudden Truex kind of goes into the slot where he'll be ahead of Jones, but, is he going to be up in front of Hamlin and Kyle Busch? No way. Kyle Busch is their bread and butter. I mean, Mars candies, M&Ms, they're on the car all the time. And he's winning. He's consistently winning.
Yeah,
so see where he fits in. It'll be interesting to see.
It's like Stuart Haas. You got 4 really good race cars there and 4 really good drivers. So
talk about Kurt Busch. Should he have been dumped? I like Kurt Busch. I liked his driving style. I thought he fit in to Tony Stewart's mentality really well. What was the deal there? Were they just he was winning. He was in the chase. What happened there? Do you have any idea, any insight into that?
I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure what caused Kurt to leave. I'm just not really sure on that.
Well, I don't think it was Kurt. I think he would have loved to stay there. I don't think he wanted to leave.
And perhaps maybe, Stuart Haas, they wanted to invest in the younger drivers. They signed on Suarez. They got Cole Custer and Chase Briscoe down in the Xfinity Series. 2 pretty good, talented drivers, if you ask me. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, and he goes to Ganassi Racing, right? He's gonna run the 1 car.
Yep.
I see Ganassi as they qualify well, which tells me they probably cheat somewhere down the road. They figured out how to, they ain't cheating until you get caught, but they don't race well. I mean, the cars don't win a lot. For as good a drivers as I think they have, and Kyle Larson obviously is a star in the sport, I just don't see them winning consistently enough to say that they're an upper echelon team. They're a mid-major, as we would talk in college basketball. They're a mid-major team. They're there. They're in the hunt. But in the end, when you get to the Final Four, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, they're going to get beat. And that's kind of what happens to them. So, here's Busch again, who I think is a great driver and kind of a really good face for NASCAR. I'm surprised that they dumped him. So, and let him go. I don't think it was his choice to go. I didn't get the impression it was his choice to leave Stewart Haas Racing.
Yeah, some people believe that this is also going to be his last season, Kurt Busch. He may retire at the end of the season. So
Well, so what? You see him going to Indy? I mean, he ran well at Indy. You know,
I can see him running.
He can do open wheel racing. I mean, does he just get out of NASCAR and go to Indy? You know, they're hurting for stars. IndyCar's definitely hurting for stars, and there's no bigger American drivers in the world than NASCAR drivers making the move over. And they got Fernando Alonso coming over to IndyCar, who's not American by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly he's going to bolster that series. And so you say you bring a Kurt Busch over there and give him a good car. Penske runs him or something like that. And, you know, he finished, I think, 5th, 6th, or 7th in his first race and got Rookie of the Year honors. The year, then went down and did the Coca-Cola 600.
Yeah,
the
double.
Did the double. Yeah.
I could see him running the Indy 500 again, definitely.
Yeah. What other stories are we going to look at this year? And this is our inaugural show, so we're kind of all over the wall right now. We'll refine it. What are the things that we want to start watching? You know, Daytona is Daytona. It's the Super Bowl. It's interesting how they start their season with the Super Bowl, where NFL ends their season with the Super Bowl. What other stories are going to be compelling for NASCAR that we're going to want to watch off the top of your head? And don't get specific because, you know, we'll talk about them all season long. So we're going to do a weekly show and post-race show. What should we be looking for to happen this year?
Well, for starters, it's the rules package and to see how the racing will change, especially for me who goes to the Kentucky races. A lot of people say the Kentucky races are boring. So I want to see how that rules package may change something at Kentucky. So that's one thing. The second thing probably is Jimmy Johnson and are these veterans like him and Hamlin, will they be able to, you know, rebound, or are they potentially, you know, declining? Are they done? You know, I think that's the other thing. The young guns versus the old vets, you know. Look out for the young drivers this year. Last year it was more the veterans. Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, Truex, they were killing it. But I think this year you're going to start seeing the younger guys sneak in a little bit more in that regards. I'm also fascinated. This is Xfinity Series. Jeffrey Earnhardt. He's driving for Joe Gibbs for 9 races this year, and I can see him winning a race. He's spent 3-4 years in the Cup Series and years before that in the Trucks Xfinity, driving for lower budget race teams, kind of just building his own identity, building his own thing. He never really wanted to race for Junior because he didn't want to be given the ride. You know, he wanted to do it his own way.
Okay, and Jeffrey, is that Dale Sr.'s son, or what is the relationship?
That is Kerry's son. So Junior's.
Go ahead and repeat that again. What is the relationship between the Earnhardts there, between Kerry, Jeffrey, and Dale Jr. and Dale Sr.? What's the relationship there? Because the sport needs an Earnhardt in the sport. I mean, this is the first season where there's not going to be an Earnhardt running in the sport. Since, 77, 76, when Big E started racing?
Yeah. So
what's the relationship there?
Junior and Kerry are the sons of Dale Sr. Jeffrey Earnhardt is Kerry's son.
Okay, so he's a cousin to Dale Jr.
Yeah, Junior's his uncle.
Yeah. All right, there you go. All right, so but we keep an Earnhardt in the sport. So, which I think the sport needs to keep a Petty and an Earnhardt in the sport somehow for as long as they possibly can. I mean, it's the legacy of the whole thing. How much trouble is NASCAR in television-wise? I mean, they got contracts coming up. They're not filling tracks. Ratings are dropping. How much trouble is NASCAR in?
Actually, something came out as well where NASCAR is finally, after all these years, they are pushing NASCAR outside of Fox and NBC. Like, they're going to be promoting NASCAR outside of the networks that they are on. And I think that could help because, especially with the rules package, you know, the casual sports fan may tune in and if they were watching the Kentucky race in the last 2 years, they'd probably switch the channel real quick. But I think with this new rules package, they may want to keep the channel running a little longer. So Fox and NBC have been adding a lot of people, making certain moves. So, and people say NASCAR's dying. NASCAR's not dying. NASCAR's not going to go away. I feel like some people who say NASCAR is dying want it to die because they want to be right. But I personally believe that a lot of good's coming for NASCAR. And obviously I know that the seats haven't been as full as they have been in previous years, which has been my concern. Although with Kentucky's race in 2017, that place was packed. And
right.
Part of it might have had to have done with Junior's retirement, but because the next year the track was like, where is everybody? So
right. Yeah.
So I think
I remember we 15 years ago we got a dog from a breeder, a Vizsla, and the breeder was in a small town outside of Indianapolis. And I told him at that point in time we were working for Pfizer and we had access to tickets through the Viagra racing team and things of that nature. And he said, if you can get me 2 tickets to Bristol, I will give you this $1,000 dog for free. And I got him 2 tickets. I called Pfizer and said, I need 2 tickets for the Bristol race. They said, no problem. And I gave him the name, and I got my $1,000 Vizsla for free because I got him 2 tickets to Bristol. Now Bristol's half full. That was the hardest ticket to get in NASCAR was Bristol.
I went there.
It was. I mean, yeah, Thunder Valley. I mean, it's in the middle of nowhere, but it was the most difficult ticket to get in all of NASCAR, and it's not that way anymore. What impact has or will have Brian France in his situation? Will he come back and run NASCAR? Is he done? Is it been taken out of his hands? Because I know his sister, I think, is the larger owner of the corporate business. Kennedy, and her name Kennedy, I think.
ISC.
Yeah. Is Brian France ever going to come back into NASCAR, or is he pretty well toast?
I don't think he's ever going to be CEO ever again. I mean, come on. You got a DUI arrest.
Multiple DUIs.
And you're running a driving sport. If anything, he's going to be way in the back. He can't do anything. He's just there. But
he's going to be filthy rich. I mean, he owns a business, so he's going to be filthy rich. Money's not going to be an issue. But does he ever have any influence? Kind of like what happened to Tony George, kind of at IMS, National Speedway. He kind of tried to take on Penske and CART and with the IRL and lost. And the family kind of said, you're kind of running our business into the ground. Just go be CEO of Holman Enterprises. You are the chairman of the board of Holman, Incorporated. You own the track, but you're not going to run the day-to-day operations of the Amsomer Speedway anymore. And they brought in, I can't think of the guy's name they brought in. I follow him on Twitter. And he's a goofball, but he's a good goofball because he promotes the sport well. But so Brian France is pretty well. So does this signal the end of the France family ending NASCAR? Because there's been rumors that NASCAR's up for sale. I mean, is that valid or not?
Yes, there has been a lot of discussions involving that. I know NASCAR has been trying to buy ISC from the
Wheeler. Is it Humpy Wheeler that owns it, or who owns ISC?
No, the ISC is owned by the France family.
So NASCAR's trying to buy ISC.
Yeah, so therefore they can mess around with the schedules a bit more, be more flexible when the contract ends here. So, which, by the way, there's been a rumor circling around that they're possibly going to shorten the schedule. They've talked about 28 or 30 races in 2021. That, of course.
Well, that'll crush me. I love it. I mean, I don't want to shorten the races, but I get where they probably need to. I think. Well, let's finish up on the France. So Brian's pretty well done. He's pretty well out of NASCAR in any kind of a regulatory capacity with the sport. He'll be a figurehead. He'll own the company. He'll get his profits, but he's not going to be the voice of NASCAR anymore.
Yeah, I think the France family will always be there, even if they stay away. They'll still kind of have that tie, but sometimes you have to make changes that you think are going to be best for NASCAR in the long run.
And the France family still owns NASCAR entirely, do they not?
Yeah, they still run.
It's not a corporation. I mean, it's not a publicly traded corporation. It's a private held entity, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
So they still own NASCAR. Yeah, they own it. So it's their call what they do. But I know the sister was the one now kind of calling the shots. And they put one of the uncles or something in charge of the day-to-day operations. Jim, what was Jim's last name? Who's running NASCAR? I don't want to put you on the spot if you don't know. I don't know. So
Jim France.
I know. Pardon?
Jim France is currently.
Jim France. Yeah, Jim France, who was Bill France Jr.'s brother or son or some relation to him somewhere down the road. But Brian's kind of out of it. So it'd be interesting to see where they go there. But I have heard that NASCAR is actively looking to maybe sell out and get it out of the family business. It'd be interesting to see how that changes the sport. I don't think it'll be good. I think you leave it alone. NASCAR's a good sport. I think NASCAR is becoming, once again, a little more regional than it got when ESPN jumped on board and made it, the national phenomena. Obviously, the '79 race with the fight in the infield, and the blizzard put that thing on the map, and it grew from there. And you get Gordon into it, you get the new millennium coming in, and things of that nature. Earnhardt comes on, and he's the poster child for rubbing his racing. Petty's winding down. But it seems to me NASCAR right now is going a little bit more regional again, where you got to be a diehard fan to want to follow it. As much exposure as there is to the sport, because you can go on starting this week, and you'll have NASCAR practice, qualifying. It'll be on every day on Fox Sports from now until the 4th of July, when NBC takes over. It'll be on every single day, which is fine with me because I DVR it all and I lay in bed at 3 a.m. and watch it. Because I love it, but that's not for everybody. But it's overexposure, which I think is what's hurting the attendance at the tracks. And soaring ticket prices too.
Yeah.
I've heard it's like $2,000 to $3,000 to park your RV in the infield now.
Yeah, ticket prices and stuff like that need to go down.
Yeah, so they'll adjust that. Any other big stories? So we got to wind this up. Any other big stories we need to be talking about down the road you want to address that we think are going to become relevant as the season moves on? Body styling, the Mustang, are they going to get the same treatment as the Camaro got? Is that going to be a big relevant story? I think the Camaro got kind of screwed a little bit. I don't think they got the aero packaging they needed. Is the Mustang going to get the same treatment, or are they going to keep the Mustang, they can keep Ford up on top?
I think it's worth talking about because we saw how the Camaro performed last year. So I think there is that sense of worry that maybe the Ford Mustang may fall into that same path. It's kind of hard to say. I feel like between the Chevy SS and the Chevy Camaro, the way they look was completely different. With the Mustang and the Fusion, I feel like it's not as much, but again, I think I'm going to wait for maybe about first 5 or 6 races and then be like, okay, I think I know what's going to go down here. I also have the first entry list pulled up for the Daytona 500. Now, of course, this is subject to change. I'll list off some notable entries. 7 of J.J. Yeley. These are guys who will have to be go or go home guys. We have a bigger influx of drivers attempting the Daytona 500. The 7 of J.J. Yeley, he's driving for NY Racing. There is the 27. This car is a second Germain Racing car. Casey Mears is going to attempt his first Cup race in 3 years. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Casey Mears back on the track. Tyler Reddick, the Xfinity champion, he's going to attempt the 500 in a third RCR car in the number 31. Sponsor is yet to be determined there. I mentioned Jimmy McMurray. He's going to attempt the Daytona 500 one last time. Rick Ware Racing has 2 cars prepped. Apparently it's listed as B.J. McLeod driving the 52. The 51's currently unannounced. Although the interesting thing here, it says Petty Ware Racing instead of Rick Ware, so I'm not sure the entire story there. Brendan Gong in the 62, Joey Gase in the 66, Ryan Truex with Tommy Baldwin Racing for this race, and Parker Kligerman in the 96.
So, and these are basically pretty much all guys that they bring money to the table.
Yeah, they don't have charters, so as it stands, we'll have like 8 drivers or so fighting for 4 positions. So I'm kind of glad to see that again. I always enjoy that, like who's going to make the race and who wasn't, you know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see. The sport's ever evolving. It's going to be a fun year. Will we do a show? You want to do a show post the Clash Sunday evening?
Yeah, we'll talk about the Clash.
Yeah, what our thought process is with Alex and myself is we kind of want to do a weekly show where we kind of featuring on the inspections, the rule changes, everything that goes on post race. Let everything absolve itself on a Monday or Tuesday, and then Wednesday we'll try and do a show, and then we'll try and do just a wrap-up of the race and look at things as it progresses in the point standings. You win. The great thing is if you win Daytona, you're done for the year basically until the chase, or it's not the chase anymore. What is it called now? The championship.
Just called the playoffs.
The playoffs, yeah. They took away the word the chase. But you win Daytona, you can experiment all year long because you're in the playoffs, which I don't know if that's a good thing or not. I don't know. I mean, I guess it would not be a good thing if they had more than 16 winners because there's only 16 teams that qualify for the playoffs. So you could end up having to be, I got to be a multiple winner to make it, but we haven't seen that happen in the history of the playoff system. Sponsorship, we're going to touch on that. This is it's Monster Energy's last year as a full-time sponsor.
As the title sponsor, and then they'll go into
regional
the new
sponsors.
Yeah, the new sponsorship system, and
we'll talk about this down the road too on a feature show. But it's going to be more like somebody will buy the restrictor plate packages, right? And they'll be the sponsor for that. And somebody will buy the 1.5-mile tracks, or somebody will buy the short tracks, and they'll be sponsors for various segments of racing or various segments of the calendar year of racing. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, it's basically going to be like tiers, like tier packages. So, for instance, you may see like the West Coast Swing presented by Napa Auto Parts or something like that. So that's
the cup will be called what?
I think it's going to be the NASCAR Cup Series.
It's going to be the NASCAR Cup Series, which is, other than the Winston Cup Series, it's what you'd want it to be. Because we just knew that it's the Winston Cup Series forever and ever and ever.
Right.
And it's not going to be that. It was Sprint Cup, it was Nextel Cup, it was Monster Energy Cup, it was Red Solo Cup. I'm making that up, but that was pretty funny, actually. We'll go from there. But, I think that's great. Just the Cup Series, leave it at that. And like I said, Sunday we have at it, right? We got qualifying at noon Eastern time.
Yep.
We'll have the Clash at 3. We'll be on probably within an hour afterwards with the show, and just kind of recapping it and kind of getting a look at. But you won't tell anything because they won't be driving their primary cars. It'll be a free for all. It's a sprint. You won't learn a lot, but we get started. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing, boys, huh?
Yep, let's go racing.
Anything else?
I have nothing else to talk about.
Well, I got 5 more pages of notes, but we'll save them for another show.
All right.
All right, guys, sign us out of here, Alex. This is your job. This is what you get paid the big bucks for.
All right. Well, from the Grueling Truth Radio Network, where legends speak, I'm Alex Gray, here with Steve Risley for the brand new NASCAR show. Thank you guys for listening so much. The 2019 NASCAR season's here, and we're in for a lot of fun racing. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.